Alright, so this is a video that I really don't want to make. It is the absolute last thing that I want to do right now, but I'm going to power through it because that's what I do. I get things done whether I feel like it or not, because if we went by the way we feel, nothing would ever get done, really. I don't want to make this video because I'm still in the grieving process. As one of you know, I've been taking care of one of my pets who had oral cancer. She has now passed away. We had an in-home euthanasia service come on the 18th because she absolutely hated car rides and going to the vet, and I wanted her to go at home peacefully, which she has done. I want to thank everyone who helped support her, send her warm wishes, and even perform some magic for her. But by the time I released that Thoth Life video with the details, it was too late. I had recorded that video a week prior, and within that week, since she had her feeding tube put in, things really went downhill. It turns out when you feed the body, which we did make stronger, you also feed the cancer. And the cancer really began to grow after that. And so by the time I released that video, it was pretty much too late. The tumor was too big and she was out of time. It got to where she had to be on pain meds around the clock and they made her loopy and it just wasn't quality of life anymore. So we made the horrible and terrible decision that no one ever wants to make to prevent further suffering in our baby girl. We're heartbroken and absolutely gutted. It's made both me and my girlfriend physically ill. With stress, our stomach has been in knots and feel nauseous. And it's a major loss for us because we don't have children ourselves and our pets are like our children. They are one of our major joys in our lives. And I did everything that I could, both medically and magically. We even went all the way across the state to get alternative treatments that we couldn't get around here. 8 hours there and back. Bought countless products for her. Got a pair of comfy collars for her to accommodate her feeding tube. A whole slew of anti-cancer products. High-calorie urgent care food. Probably $2,000 on cannabis oil alone. And different kinds at that. Now somebody had asked, why don't you let your pet fast? Well, she couldn't physically eat anymore. That's why we had the feeding tube put in. The tumor was in her jaw and it grows up through the floor of her mouth, pushing her tongue up to where she just couldn't eat food, either physically or because it was just too much pain for her to do so. So she was fasting, and in doing so, she was starving to death. Cats aren't like people. If they go for 48 hours without food when they're sick, they can die. It starts affecting their organs. But, I get the idea. You starve the body, you starve the cancer. That's so much easier in people than it is animals. Now, cancer just doesn't use glucose for fuel, which is the food that's broken down into sugar, but it also uses glutamine, which is an amino acid that's found in your muscles and a whole host of foods. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to get away from glutamine entirely. The cancer starts using glutamine for fuel. This is why your muscles start breaking down and you start wasting, even if you are eating. But I get it. The best diet you could probably be on if you have cancer is a keto diet, because cancer can't use ketones as fuel. Get rid of the sugars, cut down on the glutamine as much as possible, and just eat keto-friendly foods. But there aren't any real keto-friendly foods for cats. Now, perhaps given more time, I could have probably found something. But that was a big issue with this cancer is time. It's a very aggressive form of cancer. The feeding tube that we had put in only really gave us an extra week. We thought it would be longer. But because we fed the body so healthily, the cancer stole all of that for its own use and really started growing. Someone also brought up giving her mushrooms with anti-cancer properties. She was getting all that. I spent about $500 on supplement products for her from a company called NHV Pet Products. So she was getting all the anti-cancer stuff, omega-3s, milk thistle, yucca root, her vitamins and minerals, dandelion root, kidney and immune support. All of these extracts were mixed in and blended with her food. So trust when I say that I tried everything, that I've tried everything. I took all the action that I could take. And it still wasn't enough. And no one's more disappointed than us. Now, magically, I also did a lot, but time was a key factor that was really working against us in this one. Between the very first onset symptom until she passed was only 2 months and 10 days. And a lot of that time was wasted time, because she didn't go into the vet the very first onset symptom, which was drooling. Pets drool. We thought it was a little odd that she had some excessive drool, but okay. It wasn't until her tongue started kind of poking out, also that we said, okay, something's probably wrong, and we brought her in. So there's a week gone right there. Then we were told it was probably an abscessed tooth, that it should be pulled by a specialist. There's another week waiting to get in to see the specialist. Then that specialist did a biopsy. We had to wait for the results. That was almost another week for those. So almost 3 weeks out of those 2 months and 10 days was wasted waiting. Only had about a month and a half to work with, and this cancer works fast. It brought her down pretty quick. She's always been very healthy and even looked and acted young for her age. I honestly believe she would live another 5 years easily. So we were completely blindsided by the diagnosis when we got it. But I did go into action, but with, a month and a half, there's only so much you could do. Some magic will take 3 months or more to work. Sometimes you can get instant results, but they're far and few in between. Conventional magic wouldn't work for me because I'm too close to this one. And the first thing I talked about in the revival program is how magic done for yourself or those you care about is some of the hardest magic to do because of the fact that it's very difficult to separate yourself from the outcome. Lust for results kills magic. The law of least expectance says you have to set it and forget it. Get it off of your mind, but how are you going to do that when you're having to treat her around the clock? It's very difficult to get your mind off of something when you're going through it constantly. Sometimes we just lose some. If we didn't, then a lot of the great magicians would still be alive today. There's a lot of people who are great at magic that are no longer with us. So knowing that I couldn't just use conventional magic, which I'm apt to do, I felt that I had to call upon spirits. So I began annoying the heck out of some angels and even pissing off a demon. And yeah, I'm going to name names because, quite frankly, I'm a little ticked off that they wouldn't agree to my petition. Now, I mentioned Hariel in a previous video. Hariel was great. Hariel is always great. But Hariel doesn't heal or cure anything. Hariel comforts. So Hariel was great at comforting and helped tremendously with that side of things. But that doesn't solve the root of the problem. So, I called upon Miliel. I also talked about Miliel in another video, who basically just refused. And that's the thing about working with angels. Sometimes they'll just say no. It's not a part of the plan, apparently. And this is why a lot of people end up choosing to work with demons instead of angels. Because angels are a bit more broad stroke and make bigger changes, and your cat getting better is not a big change that they're apt to make. But hey, no biggie, I have other options. So I went to Eladia, who I called upon for 11 days, who then referred me to Sihaya. Wish she told me that on day 1 instead of day 11. So I called up Sihaya, who is the angel of longevity. And of course I petitioned for my cat to be healed and to have more time with her. And when I asked how much time she had, I was told the 18th. And in a separate tarot reading afterward, it said the same thing. Now, I didn't know if that meant that she was going to pass on the 18th, or if that's how long I had to cure her, although that was probably just wishful thinking on my part. But what I was told was absolutely bang on. It was the 18th that she passed. And you could say, well, you're the one that made the call, so you're the one in control of her time. And that's fair enough, but understand that I would not make that call unless the situation warranted it. I didn't even know if she was going to make it through the night, and actually felt bad that I didn't do it the day prior. That's how you know it's time. So I called the next morning, and they came out about 5:40, and she had passed at 5:55. The only angel that really gave any visible results that I called upon was Raphael. And this is why Raphael is always a go-to, because he will help a lot of the time. He still may say, no, you don't always get what you want, but I have had more success with Raphael than with any of the other so-called healing angels. Raphael did help, but it didn't cure the cancer. Or you could say it was the cannabis oil because she just got a dose the night before. But it was just too much of a coincidence that when I visualized and conveyed to the angel how I saw her as being healthy, which was doing a lot of her old behaviors, like one of her things was to wait for us to come out of the laundry room downstairs and then run ahead of us up the stairs, stopping on each stair, wanting to get petted all the way up the stairs. She had one particular scratcher she liked to scratch on that she wasn't doing anymore since she became ill. A lot of these behaviors, the very next morning, she started doing again, which we were absolutely ecstatic with. We were blown away. Like, this has been an absolute roller coaster for us, with very high highs and very low lows. But the one thing that I didn't get that I had asked for was a reduction in her tumor size. So angels are very good at giving you what you want, sometimes. And so if they won't do it, well, it, let's go ask a demon. Now, I haven't done a Goetic operation in quite a long time because, one, I never really had any need to. I've always been able to provide for myself magically without the need to call up any spirits. But this is no ordinary time. And two, I don't particularly like to. There's a lot of work going into the planning and preparation, and they're not always that pleasant. You never know what you're going to get or what weirdness you're going to be in for if you're calling upon one that you've never worked with before. But hey, my cat's dying, so I guess I got to summon a fucking demon. The things we do for those we care about, right? So I go ahead and do an operation to summon Bure, Goetic spirit number 10, I believe, who doesn't even want to show up. I had to put a constraint on him and do the invocation of the king just to get him to come, which really isn't that uncommon. A lot, if not most of these spirits don't want to do this any more than I want to do it. So it's kind of a mutual thing. Now, I don't see the spirit arrive, but I know it has because the temperature's dropped about 10 degrees. I start getting the goosebumps. You can kind of sense that it's in the room with you. So I welcome the spirit. I do the address. I tell him what I called him for, and I'm refused. I'm basically told no. And so now I'm kind of pissed because I just spent a half hour, 40 minutes trying to get him to show up, and the room's filled with incense to the point that I'm basically choking on it, which, by the way, is another reason I don't particularly like to do Goetic operations because of my lung issues from all the years of smoking. A little incense for normal practice and magical operations is fine, but when you're trying to call a spirit, you need a lot of incense, and I just don't like breathing in all that smoke. So I'm refused, and I kind of ticked. So I put the spirit chain on him, which is the general curse when they disobey, and I'm still refused. So when I ask why, I'm basically told that it's not part of his office, but he's supposed to be able to heal diseases. Now, later on, I look it up, and there are some versions that describe his office as healing diseases or distempers in man, specifically, but others just say, heal diseases. So I figured he would be the go-to, but not according to the spirit himself. He is apparently not the animal healer that I thought him to be. And, of course, I'm quite disappointed to hear this. And so I tried to coax the spirit, but just ended up insulting and offending it. Because I said, well, surely if you can heal men, you can also heal a lowly cat. And I know this offended him because there was a very distinct and audible growl in the room right after I said that. Because remember, I still can't see the spirit. And so I had forgotten that a lot of the depictions of this particular Goetic spirit has the head of a lion. And here I referred to cats as being lowly, when this is a great president of hell. And I guess he took it personally or was offended by that, insulted. Even though I didn't mean it that way. I meant a cat's lower than a human. But everyone's so easily offended these days. Of course, I quickly apologized and said that I didn't mean it like that, and that it's often depicted as a lion only supports my argument that it should know a little something about felines to heal them. But again, I was refused, said it wasn't part of its office, and was quite annoyed with me. So at this point, I just gave it license to depart. I guess I could have tried putting the greater curse on him, but I doubt that would get me anywhere and would probably only make the spirit more reluctant to work with me in the future. So I gave it license to depart and allowed it to leave at that point. I had even offered to, spread word of its miraculous deed if it was successful, which I was ready, willing, and able to do, and would have been overjoyed to do so had they performed the task that I petitioned them for. But instead of being able to tell you of their good works, I get to tell you how stubborn and difficult they are to work with. And then we were just out of time. If I had more time, I would have kept going. I do not give up easily. I get extreme tunnel vision when I focus on something. And so this has taken up my sole focus. Had I had more time, I would have found someone else to call upon. I would have found another way of doing things. The reason we didn't put her down the day before is because I was trying one last Hail Mary attempt on something that I had overnighted from California at great cost. But that didn't work either. I have Mars and Scorpio, and Mars and Scorpio fights to the death. Not always our own, if we're fighting for someone else. will fight for them till the end as well. So now that all of this is over, I do have a lot of cleanup to do around here. A lot of things fell by the wayside. Our kitchen counter still looks like a veterinary hospital. The drool that she had always coming out of her mouth had, ruined a lot of items and a lot of their pet beds. I got to go through a lot of things. It's going to take me a bit to get back in the swing of things. I am still grieving, and my grieving process is pretty much the same every time. At first, I blame God for even allowing such a horrible disease to even exist, especially in an animal that's just so sweet and innocent. She really was the sweetest pet anyone could ever ask for, and to see her go through something so horrific and terrible does make me angry. So first I blame God, and then I ultimately start blaming myself because, my reality, my responsibility. I didn't get it done, right? I didn't do enough to save her. And then eventually I'm reminded that even the all-powerful Jedi couldn't stop people from dying. That's what turned Anakin to the dark side. He said, someday I'll be able to stop people from even dying, and then went on to murder children to try to save somebody he cared about. And then as Darth Vader, probably untold thousands of people. There are some things that are just going to be outside of our control. We don't always win. We win a lot, but sometimes the ones we lose are some pretty big losses. And eventually we have to make peace with that. Right now, I'm still pissed off and heartbroken. And after all, I put a lot into this one. And it's not so much that she passed, because every living thing will. It's the manner of it. That's what bothers me. Something so sweet and innocent doesn't deserve to go through something so terrible and horrific. And I know that's a judgment on my part, and I shouldn't be judging. But it's difficult not to, seeing it come out of nowhere and just suck the life right out of your pet. And then the difficulties that they go through with this tumor growing ever bigger in their mouth. Absolutely terrible. That's what I have a hard time making peace with. It's the nature of the death. But it is what it is. Eventually I'll get through my grieving process and get things going again. I do appreciate all of your patience. I do have another unreleased video that I did make a while back when I was watching the Loki series that I'll probably release before this video, because I have held it back so long because of everything that we've been going through. I will bounce back, and I am grateful for the almost 15 years of joy that she has brought into my life. So once again, I want to thank you for your patience and understanding and your warm wishes and your condolences. And I'll see you next time. Take care.